This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. If you're looking for cards in the US, look no further as you can use the promo code MTGMudsta to get you 5% off anything on the site. Or if you're in Canada like me, you can use the same promo code at Multizone to get 10% off your orders of singles. If cards aren't what you're looking for, Original Magic Art has playmats, tokens, and sweet art that you can use that same promo code to help you get 5% off your order there. If you're looking to bling out your cards, using Alter Sleeves is a great way to do so, and you can click the affiliate link in my About section to help out the channel as you make an order. And if you just want to help out the channel, you can always consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month and join the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game finds us back at Kessel Run Games, and I'm playing Trostani, Selesnya's voice, keeping a forest, cultivate, grapple with the past, mirror pool, Archon of Valor's Reach, flagstones of Trocare, and a worldly tutor. Morgan is playing Haldan and Pako, keeping a river glide pathway, Copperline Gorge, Forest, Verdalcan Orrery, Soul Ring, Stolen Strategy, and Decisive Denial. Elliot's back with his Gisela Blade of Gold Knight, keeping 3 Mountains, a Plains, Price of Glory, Masako the Humorless, and Legion's Initiative. Maggie is playing her Obosh the Prey Piercer, keeping a Gutter Snipe, Court of Ambition, Possibility Storm, Mountain, and 3 Swamps. Morgan wins the die roll and starts us off. He plays a Copperline Gorge and taps it for 1 for a Soul Ring. I draw and play a tap Mirror Pool. Elliot plays a Temple of Triumph, scrying 1. Maggie draws and plays a Swamp, passing to Morgan. Morgan draws and plays a River Glide Pathway on the island side, and then plays a Talisman of Curiosity. He's then able to cast one of his commanders, Haldan, and passes to me. I draw and play a Flagstones of Trocare, passing to Elliot. Elliot draws and plays a Plains, and pays a red and a white for Legion's Initiative. Maggie just plays a Mountain, and passes to Morgan. Morgan draws, playing a Forest for turn, and then casting Pako. Moving to combat, he swings the good boy at Elliot, and we all reveal off the top. Exiles a Scattered Groves, Command Tower, Judith the Scourge Diva, and a Training Center. This gives Pako 3+1/+1 counters, and deals 6 to Elliot. Morgan then passes turn. I play a Forest, and cast Cultivate, going to find a Forest and a Plains, putting 1 to the field and 1 to hand. With nothing else, I pass to Elliot. Elliot plays a Mountain, and then keeps everyone nice and honest by playing a Price of Glory before passing turn. Maggie plays a Swamp, and 3 mana gets her a Gutter Snipe, and she passes to Morgan. Morgan draws and moves straight to combat. He swings Pako at Elliot again, and this time we reveal a Fortified Village, Sacred Foundry, Charcoal Diamond, and Shivan Reef. Pako gets 4+1/+1 counters, and deals 10 to Elliot this time. In his second main phase, Morgan then plays a Command Tower from the Pako to exile cards, and then casts a Stolen Strategy. I draw and play a Plains. I then tap 2 green and 2 white for Trostani and pass to Elliot. Elliot plays a Mountain in his main phase and casts an Archon of Emeria. He then casts a Path to Exile and targets Pako. Morgan responds to this by casting Decisive Denial to counter it, but this forces Morgan to lose the Command Tower he uses to cast it from the Price of Glory trigger, and with nothing else, Elliot passes. Maggie draws and plays a Mountain, and then taps into a Court of Ambition. She becomes the Monarch, and moves to her end step, drawing a card. At Morgan's upkeep, Stolen Strategy exiles the top card of each of his opponent's libraries, and he hits 2 lands off of Elliot a die, and a Spectral Searchlight from Maggie. He then draws and plays a Shivan Reef from the Pako pile, and then casts a Bear Umber onto Pako. Moving to combat, Morgan swings Pako back at Elliot, exiling a Bramble Sovereign, Zerda, Volcanic Torrent, and a Botanical Sanctum off the top of our libraries. This has Pako getting 2 more +1/+1 counters, and Elliot is forced to chump block using his Archon of Emeria. In his post-combat main phase, Morgan then plays a Verdalcan Orrery, and then a Mana Vault, and passes to me. I draw, and play a Rogue's Passage. I then play a Uvenwald Hydra since the Archon is gone, I resolve the Hydra trigger first, going to find a high market, and then Trostani's trigger, gaining 7, and I pass the turn to Elliot. Elliot plays a mountain in his main phase, and then casts a Hushbringer and passes to Maggie. Maggie goes to her upkeep, and the court triggers, with each of us opting to take 6 instead of discarding 2 cards. Maggie then plays a swamp, and casts her commander, Obosh, and then moves to her end step, drawing from being the monarch. Morgan's stolen strategy triggers on his upkeep, revealing an Avenger of Zendikar, Swiftfoot Boots, and a swamp, and he then draws for turn. He plays those Swiftfoot Boots and equips them onto Pako, and moves to combat. He swings Pako at Maggie, which has us all revealing a Plains, Darksteel Mutation, Rolling Tremblor, and a Windfall. This gives Pako 4 more +1/+1 counters, and Maggie then chumps with a Gutter Snipe. Post-combat, Morgan then casts an Avenger of Zendikar, but with no Enter the Battlefield triggers thanks to the Hushbringer, doesn't get anything, and then plays a Training Center, and passes. I draw, and move to combat. I pay enough to activate Rogue's Passage on my Ulvenwald Hydra, and swing it at Morgan for 7. He takes the hit since he has no choice, and I pass to Elliot. Elliot draws, and casts a Grand Abolisher. He then casts a Mirror Shield, and passes to Maggie. On Maggie's upkeep, her court triggers, and everyone takes 6 except for Morgan, who discards 2 cards. She then draws, and plays a mountain, and follows up with a Possibility Storm. In response, Morgan flashes in a Charcoal Diamond, losing the 2 lands in the process to the price of glory, and takes his turn. On Morgan's upkeep, he takes 1 from Mana Vault, and the Stolen Strategy triggers. It flips a Forest, Thought Vessel, and Fire Diamond, and Morgan then draws for turn. He plays a Windfall from the Pako pile, which actually gets to dodge the Possibility Storm, and everyone discards their hands and draws 7. He plays a Rejuvenating Springs for his land for turn, and then casts Birds of Paradise. Moving to combat, he swings Pako at Maggie, flipping Farhaven Elf, Marshal's Anthem, Skewer the Critics, and Deflecting Swat. Pako gets 3 more +1/+1 counters, and Maggie's forced to block with Obosh or die. Morgan also gets to untap his lands from the Bear Umbra. In his second main phase, he casts a Chrome Mox, which flips into a Chaos Wand from the Possibility Storm. He then casts a Robber of the Rich, which turns into a Bloom Tender thanks to the storm as well. Morgan then casts a Darksteel Mutation from the Pako Exile pile, and puts it onto my Ulvenwald Hydra, and passes to me. I draw, and convince Elliot to block with the Hushbringer to get it off the field. Elliot does, and once the creature's done but before leaving combat, Morgan activates Chaos Wand and targets Maggie. She flips until she hits a Jeska's Will, and Morgan casts it to make 9 red mana and exile his top 3 cards since he controls his commanders. He then casts a Dockside Extortionist from there, and as it enters, makes 5 treasures. He also casts a Return of the Wildspeaker from hand, which because of Possibility Storm, transforms into a now useless Swan Song. In my post-combat main phase, I cast Karmic Guide, which flips into Selesnya Eulogist. And I play a Canopy Vista, and then tap enough for a Birthing Pod. Unfortunately, this flips into an Altar of Dementia, and with nothing else, I pass. Elliot draws and casts a Stranglehold, which flips into Authority of the Consuls. He then casts a Soul Ring, which flips into an Assault Suit, and passes turn. Maggie's court triggers, and I take 6 while Morgan and Elliot discard 2. Maggie then plays a mountain, and recasts Obosh, with Elliot gaining 1 life as it comes in. With nothing else, she passes to Morgan. Morgan untaps, and the Stolen Strategy triggers, exiling a Forest, borrows Swiftblade, and Serrated Scorpion. He takes 1 from the Mana Vault, and draws. Moving to combat, Elliot swings Pako at Maggie, exiling a Loaming Shaman, Rout, Blightning, and Chandra's Ignition. With the Bear Umbra trigger on the stack, Morgan casts a Volcanic Torrent from the Pako Exile pile, and cascades into an Exploration. The Torrent then deals 2 to everything, which kills nothing, and the Bear Umbra trigger then resolves, untapping Morgan's lands. Maggie then dies from commander damage, and Morgan becomes the Monarch. In his post-combat main phase, he casts a Boros Swiftblade off the Stolen Strategy, and with nothing else, he draws from being the Monarch at the end of turn. I draw and play a Plains, and then cast a Phyrexian Processor. It enters, and I pay all but one of my life into it. At my end step, Morgan casts Chandra's Ignition, targeting Pako, which I respond to by activating the processor. However, Morgan responds by casting Chaos Warp and targets Trostani, which will have me gain no life as the token enters, and I know the game is done at this point. Elliot and I know the game is done at this point, and scoop it up to Morgan. Game review time. So I think that Morgan certainly had a much stronger start than the rest of us, at least in terms of mana, and part of the reason that I think Pako is so good, other than the fact that he can attack as soon as he comes out, not to mention get big, is the fact that he messes with your top deck. Let's say you keep a sketchy opener and don't have a lot of lands, if Pako exiles land off the top when he's attacking even a different opponent, that can really set you back. It's a shame we didn't get to see Maggie's Obosh deck do more, because the game before this where we didn't film, her commander plus the Possibility Storm being out was a pretty lethal combo for most of the table. Elliot's Gisela deck seemed to be more stacks heavy with punishing effects, but unfortunately we didn't get to see too much of it in action. I'm always happy to see a Price of Glory in play, and the fact that it actually cost Morgan some lands made it even sweeter. I was probably too ambitious putting all of my life into that Phyrexian Processor, and I probably should have held some of it back, but sometimes I like to live dangerously, and especially in this kind of deck, it can often be very rewarding. Had I been able to resolve it, I would have been able to populate the token the next turn and make another one and potentially mill Morgan out, dealing with him forever. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated.